It's interesting how those early choices shape us.
And to this day, I will never forget that hug. It can really transform the message.
Thank you for joining me here tonight. Every story has a beginning. You spent 16 years in the Defense Force. Where did your story start? Was it your childhood dream to join the Army, or was it something that happened naturally?
Thanks for that question, Nick. You can say that the Defence Force was in my blood. I'm third generation Defence Force. But it wasn't something that I had initially an aspiration for. I was a teenager with female hormones, and the cute guy across the street joined Air Force Cadets. So did I. So that's how my journey started.
It's interesting how those early choices shape us. When you think back to the person you were when you first put on the uniform, what stands out most about that earlier version of you?
Pride. I had so much pride to put on that uniform. It wasn't just because of the family, but it was for what it represented. It represented the country, represented the ability to help people. And that was my general feeling of really, really proud.
From those early days, your path took you overseas. And when you think about your time in foreign countries, what's the first thing or memory that comes to your mind?
I had the opportunity to go overseas on 3 different occasions, and each occasion was very different and very different reasons why I was there. The first time I got to go overseas was in Bougainville, an island off Papua New Guinea. It was a peace monitoring mission, and I was so excited. Lots of adventures were to be had. And going back to my parents' days, my dad was born in Papua New Guinea. So I heard a lot of stories about Papua New Guinea, and I was really excited to be there. 2 other deployments, less so.
About those, one of your deployments was in Iraq, and it's a place that carries a lot of weight for many various reasons. What was it like to arrive there not as a tourist, but as someone who had a role to play?
That was less exciting because the lead up to that deployment was it was almost frightening because of what was happening in the country, what was happening to the American soldiers that were over there. So when you turn up to the country, you're not looking around at the beautiful scenery or the culture. You are there to do a job, and you only focus on the job.
And then your work also took you to Bali, when Australians were dealing with the aftermath of the bombings. I'm curious, from a human perspective, how did it feel to be there helping people at such a difficult moment?
It was difficult. And when we flew into Bali, I don't think the Australians had even heard that the incident had happened. Flying in, you were excited because you were doing a role that you had trained for, which was mass casualties. When we got there, the smell of burning flesh, sorry everyone, but the smell of death, the fear, you can smell fear. And initially that kicked in, not only to myself but the team. But it didn't take long before our training kicked in and we were able to just get on with the job.
You were there to help other people, but I wonder, was there a moment or a situation when someone else's help or support made a difference to you?
Not so much when we were in Bali, because it was so chaotic. But I will say going back to a time in Iraq, I had an American soldier just grab me and give me the biggest hug I've ever experienced. And obviously he must have seen the look on my face over something that had happened. And to this day, I will never forget that hug. So a simple hug, but it made a big difference.
Working in places where English isn't the first language must have changed the way you communicate. Did you have any situations when you thought, oh, my body language, my tone actually carry more meaning than words?
Throughout my life, I've travelled, and I actually went to school in Malaysia. So I'm quite used to working and communicating with people that don't speak English. But probably the most powerful story, because it's related to war, was I got asked to do a body search of a female who was in full burqa. The face covered, you could only see her eyes. I wasn't trained to do this, but as I'm patting her down, I felt a bump. And I just said to her, and I'm getting goosebumps again, it was like she couldn't speak English, I couldn't speak Farsi, but I just felt this and I went, baby? And the smile and the look and the love that was just exchanged in such a horrible environment was just beautiful.
And in the Defence Force, communication must be very different from how we interact in everyday life. Fast, precise, sometimes life or death. How did you learn to stay clear, calm, and effective with your words?
Well, I like to talk. So being concise, clear, calm, it was training. It really was. And it was also part of the structure of the Defence Force. When you wear a particular uniform with a particular rank, it's much easier to be, to give directions for people to follow, and making sure it's clear, calm, and in control. Raising voices in loud environments is part of it, and using your tone to talk about the urgency of the situation at the time.
Across those different cultures, from the Middle East to Asia, were there any small habits or gestures that surprised you or taught you something new about how people connect with each other?
I wouldn't say surprised, but just that learning of a simple smile means so much in communication. And it can really transform the message by a smile. And of course, this is days before Google Translate, nothing like hand gestures. Like I mentioned, baby, it's about that human connection and that whole experience of communicating.
After living in such intense environments, what was the biggest shift when you got back to civilian life?
Very challenging. And to this day, it's still challenging. I think it's people knowing that you've been away, they've seen something on the news, but trying to communicate what's happening. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Yes, challenging is the word.
But you are getting there.
I'm a lot better than I was 6 years ago. And there was a really interesting documentary on ABC last night called When the War is Over. And it was about the use of music to help soldiers heal from 19, Red Gum's 19 and Cold Chisel's Khe-Sanh. And I just watched that show and tears, It's a different story.
If you could share one insight or one life lesson from your years of service, something that you think more people should understand, what would it be?
Mateship in a work environment is so important. There's a saying, rising tides lift all ships, and that's exactly what it's like in the Defence Force. You've got a team, you've got a mission, you've got a job to be done. Everyone knows their roles. And there's no fighting to get up the corporate ladder. And I wish that was more of a general ethos in the Australian workplace, at least.
Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you here with me tonight, and we appreciate your openness and sharing your stories.
Thank you, Nick.